Scorpio, your June 2025 is going to see your two ruling planets hugely influential, Mars and also Pluto. It begins this month with a collective in your 8th house. The 8th house can be in a more psychological way where things shift in life. Now, you have an appreciation of that more than most zodiac signs. You know that life can be intense, can be quite stable, and then go through big alterations. And that's what the 8th house can be about in a more psychological context. But it also can be about money, long-term money, investment, shares, savings, possibly even digital currencies. Because at the start of the month, the Sun and Mercury are in a sparkling alliance. They actually reached an accord at the end of May, which was glittering. So you may have made some really big decisions as May came to a close around investments, property, savings, shares, pensions. Something to do with a legacy may have been discussed as well. But also Jupiter's been in that part of your situation for the last year. And Jupiter has a reputation, of course, as being lucky. It's the greater benefic. But as it comes into this month, it is in a square with the greater malefic, Saturn, which is in the part of your chart to do with risk, speculation, but also romance, fun, self-expression. So over the last couple of years, Saturn's been asking you to work hard at your talents, but over this last 12 months, as much as part of you may have wanted to do things that have improved your financial situation, it may have been a little bit off and on. At times you've done things that have seemed very positive and may have paid off. At other times you may have felt more cautious. Maybe it's around your romantic situation that things haven't quite been rattling along at quite the speed you would like, because the 8th house can be about devotion, where we get most intimate, where we're most dedicated to a particular person. But on the 6th of this month, Venus, the relator, which has been in a very practical location, but forging a stunning link to your traditional ruler Mars, suggesting one professional relationship may have really improved in the latter part of May, and that could still be something that feeds into the start of this month. But once Venus moves into your opposite sign on the 6th, that can really be very beneficial. Venus loves being in the 7th house. It's also going to square up with your modern ruler Pluto in the second week of this month. That can be quite tricky. If someone offers you something and uses a bit of an emotional response in order to attract you to that opportunity, maybe about a job, maybe someone who fancies you, but if they're pulling at your heartstrings, just be a little bit careful. Sometimes with Venus and Pluto in a square, people can ladle on the charm in order to get what they want, but that won't necessarily be something what both people need. Now, it's also a possibility that someone that you already know, maybe connected to your family, could become a much more significant figure in your life. Having Venus in your 7th house from the 6th can help the equilibrium of situations. It asks us to celebrate the things we have in common, not the things that make us different. And because it's in its sign of rulership, it's a very sensual place for Venus to be. So if you do enjoy sharing good food and good wine with friends, connections, or possibly one special person, that's all fair and dandy. Just be conscious that Pluto in the 4th house, and it's going to be there for the long term in its retrograde, is seeing your emotional needs amped up in ways that may not be enormously obvious. So the 8th house is about transformation, the Sun, Mercury, Jupiter, and you have Venus from the 6th in your 7th house relating, but Pluto in the 4th house from the start of this month. It's going to be about big changes around where you live, how you live there, and who you're with. And because Pluto does forge a link to Saturn and Neptune, newly arrived in Saturn's case on the 25th of May last month, that's a very practical part of your scope. So practical changes to where you live are in the mix. How you relate to others is in the mix. There could be some conversations about long-term finances, but also the potential to get closer or not so close to someone you're encountering. But what about your traditional ruler? Well, Mars starts this month in a very dominant location. If we go back to the early part of November last year, through to the early part of the new year, then again from the 18th of April, through to the 17th of this month, Mars has been in a very powerful location. And that may have helped you to put across your viewpoint, be quite confident and assertive, show your leadership credentials in a very positive way. And as I say, Mars starts this month in a great link with Venus. So the charm of Venus links with the power of Mars. And that may be something you can capitalize upon. But Mars is then going to be moving on the 17th of this month into a much friendlier part of your chart. Year 2025 is absolutely speeding by. And back by popular demand is my very unique personal horoscope offer. You can order your year 2026 forecast now, but also get the rest of year 2025 free. Also, my special package, which is totally unique to each person it's produced for, you'll get your life roadmap report. This is the most important document any of us can ever read, because this helps to give us searing insights into the patterns that are played out in our lives so far, but importantly, how to work with that energy future forwards in a much more effective way. The forecast helps you to time your moves to the best advantage. Please see the link below for more. But let's just rewind back to the 8th. Because Mercury catches up with Jupiter, and if there is something you're discussing around a contractual matter, a business affair, do you know you could have a slice of fortune as long as the detail is not something you skip. Saturn in the 6th house really demands precision. Neptune in the 6th can be a bit sloppy about those details. So just really concentrate if someone's offering you something. But I feel something really important can come to pass across the 8th and 9th of this month, because Jupiter then moves into the 9th house. It rules the 9th sign of Sagittarius as well as the 12th sign of Pisces. But Jupiter moving into the 9th is great for contracts, deals, international affairs, travel, export, import, buying and selling. So you've got the two marketeers together, Mercury and Jupiter. Mercury moves into your 9th house on the 8th, then Jupiter the 9th. Also a great time for you to be setting up some kind of plan, holiday, vacation, higher educational course, marketing something you've got to sell. Maybe it's to do with higher education, maybe it's to do with publishing the book. Everybody feels they got a book inside of them. That would be a great opportunity to go for it, and also over the next year. But just be conscious of when Jupiter moves into Cancer, where he is exalted, so it's a very strong position for Jupiter to be. He is clashing with Saturn. So you've got one planet's about go, the other is more about no. In simple terms, what they do in a square is they fight for dominance. Jupiter can be a little bit free and easy, perhaps even a bit too carefree, maybe a bit unconcerned about details. Saturn saying no. If you really want to go to where Jupiter can take you over this next 12 months, you must be precise. It's really important. Because on the 11th there is a full moon, and it's very much about the ins and outgoings around your finances. It's T-squared by the nodal axis. There's a flamboyancy that could be coming in with you at this part of the month, which would be good to see. You know, I feel that you can be quite cautious. You can be very canny. You very rarely miss things. And that ability to use that perception, but in a very structured way with Saturn in the 6th house, is going to be a real asset over the next year, I feel. But the full moon is, if something's out of kilter about the give and take of everyday finance against long-term finance, it's a good time to scrutinize all those energy bills, those services from telephony and broadband and mobile phone contracts. See if you can squeeze a bit more out of your situation by using that canniness that's so part of you. But I do love the fact that Mars moves into a friendlier location on the 17th. And in fact, the latter part of this month gives you the chance to just really open up your life and enjoy some fresh air. If you're someone who is very diligent, Scorpios often are, you live your life in a very systematic way, you're really being urged towards the end of this month, Scorpio, to broaden your horizons. Now, for many of us, that can be as simple as a change of routine in a particular day. It may be even altering what we watch on the TV, choosing to perhaps consume different types of films, maybe going for a walk a different route, perhaps deciding to take a day off spontaneously, perhaps also booking that vacation. Because if you can, get away from it all towards the end of this month, it will be so good for you. But Saturn does square up the Sun's arrival in Cancer with the summer solstice. Cardinal Quadrant 2 is ushered in, a big part of the year for you to be more expansive. It is linking with Jupiter. That becomes exact on the 24th. Could be lucky again around a contract deal. The 25th, the new moon, again Jupiter's in the mix, but so is your traditional ruler Mars. But then your modern ruler Pluto is back into the picture at the end of the month as Mercury climbs to the top of your chart, replacing Mars, and it can give you a great assertion and clarity, but it is in opposition with Pluto. You might find yourself, especially if there's been a whole raft of good news towards the end of this month, someone close to you may raise some kind of objection or give you faint praise, and it could really be irritating, to be honest. And you may give them short shrift, and they might deserve it. Because I feel Saturn, as it has been over the last couple of years in your 5th house, and Neptune since 2012, it's not been a bundle of laughs necessarily. It's taught you a lot about to celebrate your talents, and that the perspiration and application, which is so important to deliver on that talent, means that sometimes we have to narrow our focus, and that means it's more difficult to do exactly what we want. I feel you're going to get an opportunity to live a freer life as this month goes on. And you know, if you have been yearning to head off to a particular location, somewhere that's rather exotic, somewhere that's got a strong historical background, if you're someone who's always wanted to investigate the genealogy of your family, all that 9th house energy is superb. If you're someone who has thought, look, I never got the opportunity to do that degree or that diploma when I was younger because I had to take a lot of responsibility for the family, do a job, you might seriously consider over the next year getting that next stage that gives you a greater sense of self, because it's something you've always wanted. It could be about learning a foreign language, learning to play the piano, whatever it is that you feel you haven't quite had the chance to embrace, that's different and fresh and stimulating. Give yourself the permission to go for it as this month goes on, but you are going to have to be very disciplined to get the return on the change of scene or the stimulation or the new beginnings that you may engage with. They will take steadfast application as well. It's been a pleasure being with you, Scorpio. Have a great June. All the best and goodbye.